วัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
A very good morning and warm welcome to the second day of Bangkok FinTech Fair 2018. This year is under the theme of SME and Consumer Financial Solutions.
สวัสดีครับแขกท่านผู้เกียรติทุกท่านขอต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่งาน Bangkok FinTech Fair 2018 อีกครั้งนะครับก็ผ่านมาถึงวันที่ 2 แล้วนะครับสำหรับเรื่องราวดีๆที่เข้มข้นนะครับและวันนี้นะครับเรายังคงต่อเนื่องและเข้มข้นกับหัวข้อทางนวัตกรรมทางการเงินนะครับภัยทางไซเบอร์รวมไปถึงด้านเทคโนโลยีครับ
So this is the very first time that the Bank of Thailand has ever organized this type of fintech events, especially at this place, our newly opened learning center, which was in banknote printing plants for almost 40 long years. I am Wichit Lekha Marom and will be your host for today's session.
ครับในงานในวันนี้นะครับจะแบ่งออกเป็น3เวทีด้วยกันครับเวทีแรกครับคือเวทีหลักหรือเวทีในห้องแห่งนี้ครับเวทีที่2ครับเวทีด้านภัยทางไซเบอร์ครับเวทีสุดท้ายครับเวทีด้านเทคโนโลยีครับ
So not only this main conference hall, there are also another two different stages about technology talk and the cybersecurity talk on the first and second floor. And also you'll find showcases of innovative financial service and products available for you to visit in the exhibition booths.
ครับนอกจากงานเสวนานะครับเรายังมีนิทรรศการที่น่าสนใจจากทุกภาคส่วนงานครับในบริเวณชั้น2และชั้น1นะครับโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งชั้น1ครับเรามีงานนิทรรศการที่เกี่ยวกับบริษัทด้าน FinTech มาแสดงนวัตกรรมกันครับลำดับต่อไปนะครับสำหรับท่านใดนะครับที่เพิ่งมาวันนี้เป็นวันแรกนะครับ
ไม่ค่อยติด
วันนี้เป็นวันแรกนะครับและอยากจะทราบตารางเวลารวมไปถึงเอกสารประกอบการเสวนานะครับสามารถดาวน์โหลดแอปพลิเคชันง่ายๆครับเพียงแค่สแกน QR code ที่ขึ้นอยู่บนหน้าจอในขณะนี้นะครับเพื่อดาวน์โหลดแอปพลิเคชัน BOT Event เท่านี้ท่านก็สามารถเข้าถึงข้อมูลทั้งหมดได้แล้วครับ
So all information about this FinTech Fair will be available for you to download from BOT Event application, which is being shown here on the screen. Just scan the QR code and download the application.
ครับและเพื่อความปลอดภัยนะครับในกรณีเกิดเหตุฉุกเฉินขอให้ทุกท่านเดินทางออกนอกตัวอาคารโดยใช้ทางออกฉุกเฉินที่ใกล้ที่สุดครับซึ่งสามารถสังเกตได้ง่ายๆจากป้ายทางออกสีเขียวบริเวณด้านซ้ายด้านขวาและด้านหน้าเมื่อท่านเดินทางออกนอกห้องนี้ครับหรือท่านสามารถใช้บันไดทางปกติก็ได้เช่นกันครับ
So for safety instructions, in case of any emergencies, please follow the green exit signs. Take staircases down to the first floor to exit the building. So since we're gathering here at this FinTech Fair, have you ever thought how much FinTech can do for you? If you cannot just imagine, please take this journey together.
and enhancing AML CFT. Amid a rapidly changing financial landscape, data is worth more than gold and can increase productivity and efficiency of businesses. Machine learning and artificial intelligence is used to analyze patterns of data beyond the capability of traditional analysis, so we can make predictions ranging from the likelihood of a certain behavior to a particular incident. The emerging approach of alternative credit scoring and information-based lending can help consumers access funding to better serve their needs. Data within supply chain businesses can be collected to provide enhanced and seamless financial solutions which are embedded in their business routines. Blockchain, or distributed ledger technology, DLT, provides a distributed and replicated system with the capabilities of immutability, transparency, availability, auditability, and resilience to attack. The more participants in the network, the more benefit we gain from blockchain. It has introduced a sharing platform that reduces roles of intermediaries. Digital assets can be distributed and shared on blockchain to ensure authenticity and security. For SMEs and retail consumers, opportunities and potential with advanced productive technologies are crucial, as they could help elevate the competitiveness of businesses and our country as a whole. Now that we see opportunities, we are determined to make changes for the better. We realize the potential of new technologies. We know how to do business and live our lives in this disruptive environment. Now it is time for us to change our world.
ครับในลำดับต่อไปนะครับขอเรียนเชิญทุกท่านเข้าสู่งานเสวนาแรกของวันนี้ครับโดยจะกล่าวถึงการนำ Data Analytics Machine Learning รวมถึง AI นะครับมาประยุกต์ใช้กับธุรกิจภาคการเงินครับจะเป็นอย่างไรนั้นรบกวนติดตามนะครับ
So please take this journey together to the very first session of today. It's going to be about the data analytics, machine learning, and AI, the essential solutions for future business. So we have a great honor from the consultant of the Bank of Thailand within the data analytics group, Professor Dr. Wanpracha Chaovalitwongse. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a warm welcome.
Swadikap. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Governor, distinguished guests. It is my extreme privilege to moderate this session. This session is about data analytics, machine learning, and AI, artificial intelligence. As you can see, it's not an easy task. If I were to create an acronym of all these technologies, DA, DAM, AI, that will be, if you don't pause it right, then it will be a DAM lie, or it's really hard to find the truth in this session. So what I'll do, I'll set a stage and I call it data intelligence, right? So data intelligence would refer to data analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, okay? So first that I call it data intelligence, let's talk about data. You probably have heard a saying that data is the new oil, right? So the idea of data intelligence is to extract useful information from the data, just like oil exploration, oil refinery. So we have to explore and refine the data to create something of value, okay? So, and the theme of this conference is to use data intelligence to help in the FinTech space and to address the SME and consumer. So just to echo the governor's last three challenges yesterday, productivity, immunity, and inclusivity. In this discussion today, we hope that we will try to address this problem. Productivity, for example, hopefully we will come up with one day data intelligence technologies that help match demand and supply of financial services or financial products. Immunity, hopefully one day we'll be able to come up with a better credit scoring to identify SMEs or consumers who are at risk, and we can contain them so that we can be immune to any kind of financial crisis. In terms of inclusivity, hopefully that we will use data intelligence technology to help those who do not have credit scores. They can use alternative data to provide them with information of how risky they are. Okay, so next, to help address these three challenges, we are very fortunate today to have a panel of 4 experts. So the first panelist is Dr. Sutapa Amornvivat. She is the CEO of SCB Abacus. Please welcome Dr. Sutapa. So the next panelist is Mr. Surapol Opasatien. He is the CEO of the National Credit Bureau. Please welcome Mr. Surapol. The next panelist is Mr. Reza Rokni. He's the Cloud Platform Solution Architect from Google. Please welcome Mr. Rokni. Last but not least, the next panelist is Mr. Chang, who's Chief Operating Officer of Tencent Thailand. Please welcome Mr. Fu. Good morning.
Morning.
Very pleased to have you with us today. So for this session, we'll somewhat organize the discussion point into 4 points. The first point, we'll talk about data, microdata, alternative data, so we can discuss and set a stage of what kind of data will be useful in the fintech space. And the second point will revolve around data intelligence, how we can use data intelligence technology to help fintech startup or financial institution in the and the third point will be about SME and retail consumers. How can we put the two together, the data, the technology together, to help address the issues that the governor raised yesterday? And the last session, it would be great if some of the panel can share some of the use cases that might be applicable to the fintech solutions. Okay, so let's dive into the first question. The first question is for Mr. Surapol. So in NCB viewed, what are microdata and alternative data, and how are they currently being used at NCB? Can they be used in your credit scoring?
First of all, I would like to thank Bank of Thailand for set up the FinTech Week today. Can you give me a slide? Okay. I will show you open the session with this picture. This is the picture have the two meaning. One is this is our life today. If the people in this picture is a bank, you are in the hyper competition, right? In terms of the data, if you not to have like the AI or the technology, how you know that who is good, who is bad? How you know is the people in this picture, who is good for your service? Okay, who is the SME, who is not an SME? This picture I show you. I said I get the picture is from the FinTech bootcamp in Australia. Okay. Next. I would like to respond in the first question is the status of the microdata at the NCB, the data for risk management in the NCB view, the landscape and alternative data. The case of the international country like Korea or Taiwan. In NCB, we have a database. You will see we have the two category of the database. One is the credit information, the traditional financial information to support the financial institute. Most of them is have an identity, okay, highly confidential, and can keep the data in just 3 years. You will see that the consumer side, we have the data subject is the 29 million data subject. Okay, if we cooperate the cooperative and the student loan, how big that you can think. The record is mean like the loan account. Loan account today is the 97 million account. The utilization in last year more than 58 million times to inquiry to get the information from credit bureau from the 97 member. From the big bank, the international bank, until like the nano or the motorcycle leasing in the area, in the province area, they're using the information from credit bureau. The commercial is the company. We have like 0.3 million subject, 4 million account. And in consumer, some part of them is the SME. We call it a self-employed, okay? And Mr. Governor is agree for NCB to set up like the new database. The new database we call the statistic information, no identity. We hash them, solve them, and anonymize them, and keep them as statistic data. You know that the consumer statistics data today, we get more than 10 years. And very big information, very big database. NCB launched the 2 model of the score. One score is for the consumer. Another one is for the SME. The develop of the consumer score is the TransUnion from Chicago. The SME score is a FICO in UK, is a development. But they're using the information from our database. This is the guideline that the World Bank. The World Bank is have a guideline for all the credit bureau in the world, 190 credit bureau in the world. They're using this roadmap. You will see that they recommend to keep the data from retailer, the telco, and utility. But sorry, in Thailand, the legal is not allowed to keep the data. I think it's everybody in this room will agree with me, like we have the panelists. We come from the data. The data, we come from the data people. We're looking for the solution in every problem. But in the reality, we found that we meeting with the people who look the problem in every solution. What did they call? The lawyer. You will see it like this. If this is the international framework that recommended by the World Bank and issue in the ease of doing business. If Thailand want to like an international standard, we go to like this. Next. This picture is from the Assistant Governor Kun Sirithida. Okay, she recommend that we come from, we want to go from the collateral-based lending, no land, no loan, right? Okay, to the risk-based lending. The star of the risk-based lending is the credit scoring, okay, using the statistics based, right? But we try to shift to the information-based lending. But if we have the legal condition to keep the data, how we can go to the information-based lending, right? FICO showed this picture in the international conference in Manila, in Singapore, to show you that financial system use the traditional data is transaction level banking, credit trade line or credit accounting, demand deposit account. This is the traditional. Most of them is a monthly basis, not the real time, right? We try to shift to the second phase to the utility, bill payment, telco, rent, or detailer. But at that time, we found that, oh, the big data from the social, the unstructured information is come in, how to keep the data, okay? How to analytic the Twitter, to respond with some of the question, okay? How they're accurate, what is the data quality of them. I think it's when we talking about the second phase of the data, the third phase of the data is coming. Okay. Next, in Taiwan. Taiwan facing with the problem in the past, 2005 is about like a double card crisis, okay? But the Taiwan is using the credit bureau JCIC and the Central Bank of the Taiwan, they put in place the data set. Do we see that? They get the information about like the income from the tax. But when we talking about the income in Thailand, nobody to talk with you. Okay. Either my wife, because my wife is the SME, she go to the bank, but she cannot to get the loan from the bank. Either I'm a CEO of the credit bureau, okay? Why? Because she didn't say anything to the bank. Sell? No. Any document to the bank. The bank is the answer to her. Either she have the deposit to the bank is more than 10 million baht, but cannot to get any cut from the bank. The information item that you see, the invoice, okay, the revenue, the utility. This is the lesson learned from Taiwan, okay? Okay, next. In Korea, telco. They're using the information from telco. The credit bureau in Korea are working with the telco to build the score and put in place the model to the system to helping the people who call like the thin file. Do we see that? They have just only the telco information, no inquiry, no account with the bank, but they can get the loan, right? Okay. If we want to go to this way, we will think about like to keep the data from telco. Last time, the two big telco come to my office. They cooperate. They want to share the information from their side to the credit bureau. We meeting too many times to looking for the resolution, how to keep the data and how to share the data. The third, knowing that the story, the third go to the regulator and tell that the two guys is to talk to credit bureau. After that, the regulator is talk to the two guys. You cannot to share the data. This is the situation that we're facing today.
So, Kun Surapol, so you think that the theme that I see here is alternative data?
Yes. If you want to helping like the SME who have the thin file, just have only the information from the telco side. Right. Okay, we have the solution. For example, we have the telco score, right?
So in that case, let me echo that to Dr. Sutapa at SCB. So what kind of alternative data is being used in the fintech space right now? And if you may share that at Abacus, what kind of alternative data have been deemed important in this space?
I'll try my best how much I can share, but I definitely cannot answer for all fintechs in Thailand and the world. I think I cannot agree with Kun Surapol more about the information that's available right now. It's everywhere, and it's not one single golden attributes that actually can foretell whether this customer is a good customer or bad customers. The knowledge that Tencent accumulate in Chinese market may not readily apply to Thai market, and everything would need to look into the data governance structure, the quality of data collected, the response of the retail customers to that data are very, very different across industries. So the only way to do it is basically to go to the market, testing that regularly, and get the feedback loop on, through the systematic testing. But I have one point regarding to the micro data business in Thailand, though. I think there are 2 points. The first point is, right now, we do not have open data policy. And the fact that we don't have that open data policy, meaning the customers actually own the data, not the corporates that actually accumulated those data over the years. Be it the private sector, be it the public sector, it would not allow the third-party startups, the third-party SME to access that information to develop their own models. And without that, it's actually the SME or a startup would have no fighting chance of being part of this data intelligence business. So that's my first point. The second point is, when we look into the development so far, we see that the economy is going to more democratized method, meaning that they try to eliminate intermediary. Bank is certainly one of it. But then it moves into a different kind of intermediary, meaning the platform, right? The platform is definitely the new kind of intermediaries that extract all, that actually the area where all the information flows through and goes directly to the customer. But I'm asking whether that market power that's starting to accumulate over time, has it been properly regulated? This is a new kind of intermediary. Bank has properly regulated over many decades for good reason. But those new type of businesses also need to be regulated in order to eliminate abuse or mitigate abuse of market power. And I would love to see that discussed.
I think that's a very good point. And let's go back to the system where you have payment system that is closed system, right? So within the system. So let me echo that to Mr. Chang. So for example, in contrast to credit, right? In the closed system where you have debit base, you have online, you have payment within the closed loop, can we use those data to analyze and use and sort of maybe create an alternative credit scores within the closed system that you can share?
Yeah, I think most definitely. I think I agree with the 2 panelists. I think we have an advantage where we were late movers, so we have a late mover advantage, right? And so we kind of leapfrogged from a cash system to an online payment system. So we have quite a lot of data. So it's no secret that we have data on our platforms. We have, what's unique about our solution is that we have a lot of micro transaction data. So what I mean by micro transaction data are typical transactions that are paid by cash, now we're able to collect electronically. So with that on top of our data set, we're able to amalgamate that, and plus with the addition of institutional data and other platform data, we're able to use that and apply AI on top of that. So essentially, to your question, getting alternative scoring, yes, we can get scoring, but we don't want to specifically use it for just credit scoring. So what we use with scoring is we have a lot of technologies. We like to use that scoring for solutions such as any consumption type related products. So that's why here I say with scores we can use it for suppliers and users. So with any score, in this case, for example, we can use the score to reduce and manage risk for lenders, right? At the same time, provide a more attractive product for our users. So with all the data, yes, it's all valuable, and it's the use of AI machine learning and deep learning that we can use to create a score for any product.
Now, can these be integrated with existing score, for example? Can it be used in conjunction with your score, with, let's say, the credit bureau score?
I think as long as there's an open data policy, right? I think that we mentioned just now that there is no open data policy, but I think if there is at some point, there could be a possibility of collaboration there.
So this is great. I think this picture shows the value of alternative data. And now, so let me echo that to Mr. Reza. So what other strategies should be used in the fintech space for processing and analysis of data sources that have not been previously collected before?
Sure.
To be creative with data collection.
Yeah, sure. And first of all, thank you for allowing us to participate in such a distinguished panel. So my role is a solution architect, and what I do is I'm a technologist, and I work with banks where we are showing them how they can use our technology to use with their data. And sort of advice to the fintechs around some of the ways that you can deal with all these new and large sources of data. I think it's first important to look at sort of what are the areas that would be of concern and things that I see that people can begin to struggle with. First of all, as we all know, it's the size and volume of this data, the amount of information that needs to be ingested. Second, it's the storing and the sharing of data. You know, touched upon some of the things here. So, and a simple example would be if a bank wants to work with a fintech to share their data sets, it's easily said, not so easily done. That movement of data, the access to data, all of these are difficult subjects. And the other last one, which is really interesting, is we are moving away from doing sort of batch processing, which is where we are processing data the next day, the next 4 hours. What matters is actually being able to process the data as it's happening, dealing with continuous streams of information. And this changes the sets of technologies and the mindsets that we need to have to make this possible. Could I have? So sorry. Thank you. One of the things that will help in terms of cloud technologies is very early on, Google had the idea of around separating the processing from storage. And I've got a use case of a proof of concept that we did with Thomson Reuters I'll talk about in a moment, how this helps. So if we think about a traditional database, when you store information in that database, to then have access to that information, either the person who owns a database needs to export the data and do the FTP dance. Those of you who's familiar with that will know it's not a good dance. Or you need to give access directly to the database itself. And that database may be serving production workloads. It's not a trivial thing to do. However, if you separate processing from storage, so the data is stored in a layer that is not associated with any processing at all, and when it needs to be processed, the data is moved to the processing layer. This allows you to build an elastic storage layer and an elastic set of scaling nodes on top. What this allows you to do is make things like this very simple. So this is a proof of concept that I did, and Thomson Reuters very kindly agreed to allow us to show us this slide. There is a blog on the technical details of this, so we won't go through it today. But essentially what we did was Thomson Reuters was pushing both batch data and stream data into a project that was owned by Thomson Reuters. Okay, that's fairly standard so far. However, here's where the separation of processing and storage happens. When they wanted to share the data with the bank, it's just a matter of the security and access controls being enabled for the access for the bank to that data. What that means is, as an analyst at the bank, if they want to make use of the Thomson Reuters data, they don't need to ask for a database or install things. They just write the SQL, and it works directly with the data where it sits, not moved over to the bank's project. This builds a very agile environment, and you can imagine with the fintechs, this could be a very easy way to share data with the fintechs, where you're hiring a fintech for the smarts of their data scientists and their data engineers, not for their ability to move data around. This is where you want them to do their activities. Hopefully that was helpful in mining that oil that you described at the beginning.
Well, that's a great point. That's So in that case, if we have that kind of access, let me ask Dr. Sutapa, how are data intelligence technologies going to be employed in that space? Let's say we have access to such data.
Such data meaning from Tencent, Google, everybody?
Yes.
And I'll dominate the world.
You have a magic wand.
But I think to be fair, I think the customer should own that data, right? So it depending on if the customer is willing to give that data sets to whoever, being the corporate, being the banks, being the third party, being anybody, that person can among and model that information into the results that the customer already given consent towards. I think the question whether the application of those data can apply to banking industries, I think most of the application is not, it's quite general. It's actually not applicable only to banking industries, probably in credit scoring and maybe fraud detection because it's quite context specific. I think other things, you know, the news that exploded over the past weekend is Cambridge Analytica. And that is the example of data analytics. To the full extent, they allegedly collect data without consent or legally, but they use that information to influence voters and construct personalized messages to influence the vote. Whether that information is effective or not, that's up to the FBI to prove it. But for what we see, I think all of the people on the panels closely watch that development into if it's real impact. I'm sure there'll be much more startups or people who aspired into going into data intelligence business.
So let me circle back to Mr. Reza. So in that case, what areas of financial service are benefiting from the data intelligence the most from your experience?
Yeah, sure. This is an interesting question. Could we go to the slides, please? When we talked about this earlier, it reminded me of a quote from Sundar, who's our CEO, which inspired me. And I think I'm going to do a little bit of a play on words. In terms of applications, so we often talk about machine learning applications. I'd like to change that a little bit and say, actually, what we think you should be thinking about is applications that use machine learning. And what's the subtle difference? Let's take a simple example of someone filling out a loan application. Now, they're filling out the loan application, and around 70 or 80% through the application online, they give up. Now, it may be because the form was difficult to understand, they didn't have the right piece of information, but for whatever reason. Now, in normal world today, the way that this will be dealt with, there'll be a clickstream of information the bank will store, and maybe a few hours later, more likely the next day, there'll be an analysis and say, okay, someone abandoned the loan application. Let's send them an email to say if there's anything we can do to help. Okay, that's normal. You may even use some machine learning to craft the email. But wouldn't it be much more powerful if you actually built the intelligence into the application itself and noticed that the user was beginning to struggle? So maybe they're going back and forth, they're spending a long time on a simple part of the form. And there, you immediately brought up an assistant that suggested, would you like some help? And perhaps that assistant is something that is using a dialogue from a conversational flow chatbot, where it is interacting and giving the user more information, or perhaps it's redirecting that user to a person who can then help them. Now that is a very different way of thinking about the application of these, but it also means for the fintechs here, you need to think differently about the way you structure your organization. So traditionally you'll have, the application developers, the business folks, these will generate data, the data engineers, people like me, will shape and package it, and you have very smart people, quite a few on the panel here, who will do the data science. But actually, that's a one-way flow with a final loop back. But this should be, all these people should be working together to build all these things into the application at the start. And I think so, what areas will it affect? I think it should affect everything. You should have the machine learning and the ability to help the user in everything that we're doing.
That's great. Since we have Mr. Chang here, so may I ask, how would that affect the payment platform? How can data intelligence come into play? How can it be leveraged on the existing platform?
So I think in terms of data intelligence, right, our perspective on AI and ML and DL, right? It permeates through the organization. So anything that we do with our application that generates data and insight, right? We want to apply that into real time into our applications. So in terms of versatility of the data and in terms of understanding a user's ability or the ability to actually either buy or consume, right? We want to apply all that insight into any of the apps that we develop. So in terms of what you said about credit scoring or FinTech apps, yeah, we want to use what he just said in terms of utilizing real-time processing, decision-making, the loop back, right, and make that in real time as opposed to any delays in this process.
That's very exciting. So now that if you have machine learning or deep learning, those algorithms works more like a black box, if you will, right? So it would be scary as you fill out the form, underneath you see the machine trying to recognize what you're trying to do. So should we have any concern about privacy information? May I ask Mr. Surapol?
Yes, give me a slide. When we talking about like the black box or the privacy, I think to answer this question, this is the situation that we facing today. We are in the stage of the unknown, right? Because if we know the unknown, we can looking for the solution. But today is we unknown the unknown, right? Either regulator today, what is they want to regulate? Okay, more data is make better decision, right? Okay, the data governance must be in place. The government is set up the working group to build like the data governance framework for the government agency to open the data. But no matter that you do anything, if you cannot to get the public trust, you cannot to resolve this problem, right? On the experience of the NCB, we build the score. And we talk with the developer. The developer is very, very concerned about the IP protect. Okay, we negotiate to them two things that they don't want to disclose. One is the relationship or the formula. Another one is the weight. But the key character they will show. The developer is talking to me that why Thailand if want to know in very detail. I tell him, this is a Thailand. This is a Thailand. You show me, and everything will be easy, okay? We, central bank come to audit the process. We have a third party every year to review and to ensure that the predictive power, the process is in line with the internet-based practice. In terms of the customer is, if they reject the loan, there will be the right to be clarified that what is the reason why they cannot to get the loan. Either the scoring, you know. The challenge is the issue is the privacy, right? I asking you one question. If you record your neighbor every morning, he wake up at what time you record. You record at what time he take a breakfast, at what time he go outside the home, at what time. You take the record. I asking you one question. Who is the data owner of this record? Who is the data of this record? If you think raise your hand. I'm a record, right? Or he, but the lawyer is said, his wife. Because she know everything. She own everything, right? This is the way that the privacy go to everywhere. Right?
So assuming if we can unlock the privacy, let's say we have access.
For example, if we anonymize the information, And we using the statistic data is to build something to helping the industry. Well, why we talking about the privacy? If we anonymize and the technique is we hash and solve and solve and hash, you know. The key success factor of the information-based lending, I think, is the eKYC, non-face-to-face, okay? The legal electronic transaction. The key is willingness to share the data. Today is we facing with the bureaucratic, very didn't want to share. Okay, the data scientist. Last week I interviewed the data scientist. The last question is the salary. He tell me that when we see the number is wow, more than CEO. And the last one is the digital literacy, right? Today we have the project is a national digital ID or SME intelligent information from the government bank side. Okay.
Since you talked about the SME, so may I ask Dr. Sutapa, how can, say we have the data, we have technologies, how can we help promote financial inclusion, help SMEs or individuals with no credit history, with no records, for example, how can we help them?
I want to reiterate my point about open data policy. I think the make use of the potential of that data is basically to have as many eyeballs as possible to see that data and become innovative about how to use that data to answer social questions, like SMEs or ability to provide service to the so-called informationally opaque customers. So in that sense, what we have done at SCB Abacus is we traditionally have been, SCB has been a bank that traditionally has been using data to do credit scoring for decades, and I think it's true for any other banks in the world. But right now, we are at the point where we have the right technology, we have the right amount of data that we had accumulated over time, and we also have a very accommodative and understanding regulator who would allow us to utilize the new development of that technology to provide a better access to that information. So I think the next step would be make it more of an open, of a level playing field for all the SMEs, and also allowing people who have ability to take more risk to lend to those who's seemingly risky for as a lender.
That's a great point. So if you look at SMEs, those who want to lend, they might want them. Well, let me shift to to Mr. Chang. So let's say to echo to your point that some people might be more risk adverse, they're willing to give loan to those who, in need. And will there be any apps that match demand and supply, like Uber, Airbnb for financial products, or the money changing hand?
Yeah, I think if you look at our track record and history, we're quite bullish on the sharing economy, right? Peer-to-peer lending or any peer-to-peer applications. So if you look at our investee companies, we have hundreds of them, right? And a lot of it is in FinTech these days. So I think the best example I can give is our investment in, say, WeBank, right? It's a peer-to-peer lending institution. And this bank has no brick and mortar retail shops, but it's enabling people that can't get access to the retail banks, access to funds, and ultimately get microloans. And so this is through data that we use and collect on our platforms, and any other data that we can actually collect in the open market, right? So we're able to leverage data across the board and use intelligence and use risk profiling, right? And also to essentially help people that typically can't get access to funds because they don't have credit history. So technology is the key.
So Mr. Reza, what will be the next disruption then?
Sure. Could we have the slides, please, again? Sorry, could we have the slides, please? Are they coming? Here we go. So a little bit of a personal note. This is actually my father and my daughter. And my father is 80, and he is significantly smarter than I will ever hope to be. And I hope my daughter goes after him, not me. Even though he's very smart, he's an engineer, not computer science, he finds online forums and computers, etc., difficult. So he would normally go to a branch and speak to a person if he needs help, or he'll prefer to call. And I feel he misses out on a huge wealth of information and useful things like applications, etc. And the reason is, if we can make the interface to the things that we do more natural for him, I think it would be very helpful, not only for him, but also maybe areas in countries where people don't have access to computers and stuff. They're not used to it. They probably feel the same as he does when you get presented with a form that requires a lot of information. And the tools that are available today, things like natural language understanding, processing, speech to text, things like chatbots or assistants, which can actually help a user contextually get to the goal that they want. I think these things will actually drive a much wider adoption of some of these uses for groups that wouldn't normally have access. And that's, super exciting for me in the things that we can do. And of course, from this side, I'm also working with banks where we're working with traders who usually have, seven monitors worth of data. But even there, we can help them by using contextual bots that understand the context of what information they're asking for, what foreign exchange data they're looking for. All of this, I think, is very, very interesting as we move forward.
Great, thank you. Since we're running out of time, so we'll try to have one last word, if anyone care to.
Let's give me a slide. Okay. I think, sorry. Yes. This is the picture that I think is where everybody is agree. Okay, it's come from like the Siam Commercial Bank on the analyst meeting. You see like the Gen Y, every time that we talk with the Gen Y is now. I want now, right? Either they want money from father, they want now. The technology is cheap, the regulatory is cheap, right? The next is, this is the ecosystem that we done the business in the past, right? The social media, the consumer and SME, the e-commerce, is not to share or not to touch with the credit reporting agency, right? From the credit bureau, right? But this is today. You will see like the peer-to-peer lending, you will using the data analytics, right? This picture is come from like the BIIA, the associate that all the information in the world is corporate, okay, and build this picture, and we facing about the world of the API, okay. Next. Good news is the NCB is the policy to open for the FinTech. Bad news is the legal is not allowed. Alert news is the situation today is the FinTech request the customer to get the credit report from the credit bureau, the credit scoring from the bureau by themselves. This is a self-inquiry, and get the report to the FinTech. After that, the consumer can disclose to the FinTech. It's really long journey for the customer, right? Hopeful news. The act come to the government, okay, but nobody knows how to take the long time or not. The condition is the paid up capital of the FinTech, if they want to be our member, is 50 million baht paid up fully. As is today is the FinTech get the nano license from the personal loan license and apply for the NCB. You see like this? This is one of the FinTech, very smart FinTech. The group of the company, they have the e-commerce, they have the e-money, they have the e-lending, they have the digital platform for communication. They come to our member, right? But the algorithm is outside of the e-lending. they outsource the algorithm to the like the another way. On the flow, you will see like the bank will be like okay, we have the relation manager for the manufacturer loan, distribution loan, blah blah blah. But the real world is e-commerce. They're using the information through by their ecosystem. Okay. This is the response from the one of the bank that we lesson learn from them. They try to build like the big data. Many big data is many big database. After that, their customer insight, very insight. Okay. The mission of the insight is knowing them is as much as his wife knowing. Okay, this is the mission. After that, they design the customer journey, and they have the opportunity space to get all the people to brainstorm and get the customer engaged. 2 years ago, in the Singapore FinTech Bootcamp, CEO of the DBS Bank is talking that we have time is 5 years. 2 years ago, but now the rest is 3 years, right? Okay. If we cannot to catch up, we will be the history. Why? You will see the picture. When you see the Apple, one touch. When you see the Google, one line. When you see your app, too many, right? KYC, AML, CDD, everything, right? I have the last picture. This is the big data. The big data is in the past. Either today we're talking about the big data, either tomorrow we will be talking about big data. But if we know action, talk only, we didn't see anything in development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So with that, let's wrap up the session and we take action. So last, I'd like to thank all the panelists for coming and sharing a very good insights. Hopefully we'll help tackle some of the problems that we have and will become tomorrow. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay. So thank you so much, all the panelists, for a very informative session here. Since we are running out of time, so let's take a quick break for 5 minutes and we'll get back to the next session.
ครับลำดับต่อไปนะครับขอเรียนเชิญทุกท่านพักเบรกรับประทานอาหารว่างสักครู่นะครับแล้วเราจะกลับมาพบกันอีกครั้งในเวลา 10:05 น.นะครับ
For now, please kindly send your what you want to tell us and rate us here. We have a quick questionnaire for all the audience to fill in.
ครับขอเรียนเชิญทุกท่านนะครับตอบแบบสอบถามนะครับที่ขึ้นอยู่บนหน้าจอในขณะนี้นะครับโดยทุกๆคำแนะนำนะครับเป็นกำลังใจของพวกเรานะครับขอบคุณนะครับ
All right, see you in 5 minutes.